everyone. Please forgive the fact that I'm lounging around in bed with my little stuffed cow watching over me. I am going to start reading these papers that I pulled out of some boxes that I got in at a estate sale or some kind of auction years and years ago. They've just been sitting in my shed, and I decided it was time to do the old Swedish death cleaning. And as I started going through these papers, I realized they're completely weird. Let me start by reading the first page. It says, "To my dear friend Hami Beg." I don't know what that means. "How these papers have been placed in sequence will be made manifest in the reading of them. All needless matters have been eliminated, so that a history almost at variance with the possibilities of later day belief may stand forth as simple fact. There is throughout no statement of past things wherein memory may err, for all the records chosen are exactly contemporary, given from the standpoints and within the range of knowledge of those who made them." Again, I don't know what that means. Also, I don't agree that they're in a good order. I've reordered them myself. Uh, So we'll see where it goes. This particular set of papers says Jonathan Harker's journal, and it's written in something that Google tells me is shorthand. Luckily, I was able to get it translated. So here we go. The first date is the 3rd of May. And then it says Bistritz. I don't know how to pronounce it. Left Munich at 8:35 on the 30. Why, that can't be right. Left Munich at 8:35 p.m. on the 1st of May, arriving at Vienna early next morning. I should have arrived at 6:46, but train was an hour late. Budapest. That I know how to pronounce a little bit because my old boss was from Hungary. Seems a wonderful place from the glimpse which I got of it from the train and the little I could walk through the streets. I feared to go very far from the station, as we had arrived late and would start as near the correct time as possible. The impression I had was that we were leaving the west and entering the east. The most western of splendid bridges over the Danube, which is here of noble width and depth, took us among the traditions of Turkish rule. We left in pretty good time and came after nightfall to Klausenberg, maybe? Here I stopped for the night at the Hotel Royal. I had for dinner, or rather supper, a chicken done up some way with red pepper, which was very good but thirsty. Get recipe for Mina. I asked the waiter, and he said it was called paprika Hendel, and that, as it was a national dish, I should be able to get it anywhere along the Carpathians. I found my smattering of German very useful here. Indeed, I don't know how I should be able to get on without it. Having some time at my disposal when in London, I had visited the British Museum and made search among the books and maps in the library regarding Transylvania. It had struck me that some foreknowledge of the country could hardly fail to have some importance in dealing with a noble of that country. And I just want to point out that since Jonathan Harker is from Baltimore, he probably knows even less about dealing with nobility than someone who grew up, I don't know, in England or something. I find that the district he named is in the extreme east of the country, just on the borders of 3 states: Transylvania, Moldavia, and Bukovina, in the midst of the Carpathian Mountains, one of the wildest and least known portions of Europe. I was not able to light on any map or work giving the exact locality of the Castle Dracula, so there are no maps of this country as yet to compare with our own Ordnance Survey maps. But I found that Bistritz, the post town named by Count Dracula, is a fairly well-known place. I shall enter here some of my notes, as they may refresh my memory when I talk over my travels with Mina. In the population of Transylvania, there are 4 distinct nationalities: Saxons in the south, and mixed with them the Wallachs, who are the descendants of the Dacians, Magyars in the west, and Zleklis in the east and north. I'm going among the latter, who claim to be descended from Attila and the Huns. This may be so, for when the Magyars conquered the country in the 11th century, they found the Huns settled in it. I read that every known superstition in the world is gathered into the horseshoe of the Carpathians, as if it were the center of some sort of imaginative whirlpool. If so, my stay may be very interesting. Mem, I must ask the Count all about them. I did not sleep well, though my bed was comfortable enough, for I had all sorts of queer dreams. There was a dog howling all night under my window, which may have had something to do with it. Or it may have been the paprika, for I had to drink up all the water in my carafe and was still thirsty. Toward morning I slept and was wakened by the continuous knocking at my door, so I guess I must have been sleeping soundly then. I had for breakfast more paprika and a sort of porridge of maize flour, which they said was mamaliga, an eggplant stuffed with forcemeat, a very excellent dish which they called emplatada. Sorry about mangling these words. Mem, get recipe for this also. I had to hurry breakfast, for the train started a little before 8, or rather it ought to have done so, for after rushing to the station at 7:30, I had to sit in the carriage for more than an hour before we began to move. It seems to me that the further east you go, the more unpunctual are the trains. What ought they to be in China? All day long we seemed to dawdle through a country which was full of beauty of every kind. Sometimes we saw little towns or castles on the top of steep hills, such as we see in old missals. Sometimes we ran by rivers and streams which seemed from the wide stony margin on each side of them to be subject to great floods. It takes a lot of water and running strong to sweep the outside edge of a river clear. At every station there were groups of people, sometimes crowds, and in all sorts of attire. Some of them were just like the peasants at home. Ouch. Or those I saw coming through France and Germany with short jackets and round hats and homemade trousers, but others were very picturesque. The women looked pretty, except when you got near them. Oof. But they were very clumsy about the waist. They had all full white sleeves of some kind or other, and most of them had big belts with a lot of strips of something fluttering from them, like the dresses in a ballet, but of course petticoats under them. The strangest figures we saw were the Slovaks, who are more barbarian than the rest. This is terrible. With their big cowboy hats, great baggy, dirty white trousers, white linen shirts, and enormous heavy leather belts, nearly a foot wide, all studded over with brass nails. They wore high boots with their trousers tucked into them, and had long black hair and heavy black mustaches. They are very picturesque, but do not look I can't say this word. They did not look prepossessing. On the stage, they would be set down at once as some old Oriental, another terrible word we don't use anymore, band of brigands. They are, however, I am told, very harmless, and rather wanting in natural self-assertion. It was on the dark side of twilight when we got to the streets, which is a very interesting old place, being practically on the frontier, for the Borgo, maybe Borgo, I don't know, pass leads from it into Bukovina. It has had a very stormy existence, and it certainly shows marks of it. 50 years ago, a series of great fires took place which made terrible havoc on 5 separate occasions. At the very beginning of the 17th century, it underwent a siege of 3 weeks and lost 13,000 people. Wow. The casualties of war proper being assisted by famine and disease. That is a shame. Count Dracula, there's a name for you, had directed me to go to the Golden Crone Hotel. That's not crone like the maiden, the mother and the crone, that's Krone. which I found to my great delight to be thoroughly old-fashioned, for of course I wanted to see all I could of the ways of the country. I was evidently expected, for when I got near the door I faced a cheery-looking elderly woman in the usual peasant dress, white undergarment with long double apron front and back, of colored stuff fitting almost too tight for modesty. When I came close, she bowed and said, "The heir American?" "Yes," I said, "Jonathan Harker." She smiled and gave some message to an elderly man in white shirt sleeves who had followed her to the door. He went, but immediately returned with a letter. "My friend, welcome to the Carpathians. I am anxiously expecting you. Sleep well tonight. At 3 tomorrow the diligence will start for Bukovina. A place on it is kept for you. At the Borgo Pass my carriage will await you and will bring you to me. I trust that your journey from London has been a happy one, and that you will enjoy your stay in my beautiful land. Your friend, Dracula." And that is the end of the first, that's the end of the first entry, dated May 3rd. It doesn't say what year it is, but it seems to be in the very late 1800s. Let's find out what happens next tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.